So I'm here with one of my favorite entrepreneurs and advocates. I really enjoy seeing them on LinkedIn talking about their product, the Zeno. And every time you talk about your product, I just wanted to share a fun fact about every person I talk to. Every time I see you talked in LinkedIn about your product, I get excited. I share your excitement. So
Mm,
like your when you
mm.
talk when you post. You can see that you're excited and it's infectious, which is great. And I think that's the one of the key things that I think when I think about developer ecosystem is the ability to be part of the community, not just to manage a community. And I think you're doing a great job there. So thank you for
Thank
being an
you.
amazing part of the developer community. Um,
Thank you.
so tell me a little bit about yourself and about your company.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Brazil and started as a Flash developer back in the day. Do you remember Flash?
Wow, yeah, of course, a blast from the past.
Flash, Flash was amazing. I had an amazing time building with that. And then the whole HTML5 thing came up, and then CSS3, all the revolution. And I really loved front end as a concept. Like that part of the engineering process was always something that I was drawn to, and I still consider myself a front end engineer, even though I do that less and less these days. But I've worked at really amazing places like WorkOS, and I've started to develop this appreciation for developer experience. So I built a code theme called Dracula that really took off. Now there's like 8 million users of Dracula, which is pretty insane. And that really got me to think about like the beauty of building for developers. So I did this Dracula project as an indie hacker. Like I still had my full time job. Then I did this thing, it took off. And then I was like, oh, let me see if I can sell a pro version of that product. And it sold like 400K. And I was like, this is
That's
insane.
amazing.
So I just saw the power of that. And I was like running Dracula for like a year or two. And I
What
never
is
considered
Dracula
my,
for those who don't know?
yeah, so you know how you go to Cursor or any code editor and you just want to make it look like your own, right? Like you
Hmm.
want the syntax highlights to be exactly the way you like. So Dracula is just that, like a color theme
Got
for your
it.
code editor, your terminal. So it's just like standardized across your whole stack. So that sold really well. And that got me thinking, wow, this is amazing, right? Like you build something, developers use it, and then I had the idea to start Resend. I've always wanted to experience what life could bring, and I saw life as an entrepreneur, as an indie hacker, as a bootstrapped founder to be really exciting. I wanted to see the other side as a VC-backed business going against the titans in Twilio and Mailgun and so many others. So yeah, that was the beginning of it.
So for the two developers that have been living in a cave, what is Resend?
Yeah, Resend is a email API for developers. So we we started because we wanted to have something like Stripe or Vercel, but for emails, and we couldn't find that. So the whole thesis was like, let's just make something that feels right for us. And feels right is hard to even describe. What exactly does that mean? And as we were like unpacking this problem, as we're pulling this thread, we started to just notice like, man, it just sucks to go to SendGrid or Mailgun or Postmark, and then you just want to send an email and you have to fill out this huge form. It's like a 2-day verification process that human has to review your application just to start sending an email. I'm like, there's no way. Like, this is not the world I want to live in. Like, I want to come in, get an API key, send an email. It's so intuitive,
Yeah.
right? Um, and I was puzzled. And I feel like being an outsider to this email industry was actually a huge benefit because it allowed us to really think like, no, this isn't right. And just challenge like the preconceptions that this industry had for a long time. And and tackle friction head on. Like friction was always the North Star. How we remove friction, how we remove friction. So we just kept looking at every single part of the product, like the onboarding flow. They used to take like 5 steps to send your first email, and then we reduced to 4, and then 3, and then 2. And we keep doing that at every layer of the product. Just now, 3 minutes before I joined this call, I'm looking at another friction that I want to remove. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
I'm really excited about that.
I think there's core truth in what you're saying, which is removing friction adds a lot of value. And I think Vercel and Netlify, um, Google Cloud started with that and then became very complex. So, what are the things that if you're building a developer API or a solution or a service or a pass, what are the core things that you think you should focus on when you simplify and reduce friction?
Yeah, there's one point about just meeting developers where they are. So for us in the beginning was something very small, but people just they assume that's always the case, and it's so much harder to get there, which is just like the depth that you have in terms of SDK coverage. So I truly believe that we live in an SDK first world and not an API first world anymore. And that means we need SDKs for Rust and Elixir, as well as Java and .NET. So from the get-go, we wanted like to be very broad. And then another thing I've started to notice, I'm like, man, I use Cloudflare workers, I use Vercel functions, I use AWS Lambdas, but there are no tutorials or guides on how to use those things. So then that was the other layer. We're like, no one is paying attention to serverless. Let's give serverless the attention that it needs to have. So then we added that layer. Today, so this was 2023. Today, 2026, this is skills. These are skills. Like you have to add skills for whatever domain that you're building for. Of course, you need an MCP server, not just a local one, but a remote one as well. And now with like the explosion of Claude, like, oh, maybe you should consider an official cloud connector on top of that. So meeting developers where they are might change every 6 months or
Yeah,
less.
that's true.
I guess in January this year was already like it's a brand new world. I feel like coming in
Yeah,
February,
now the developer has
uh,
clause.
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's really about like sitting with users too and seeing their whole journey. So for us as users ourselves, I'm really glad you called that out about like what we post on social media and stuff, and how excited we are, because just that's just something that like I use this product every single day as a user. I send Dracula emails using Resend, and that kind of thing, right? I use Resend to send Resend emails, and
Yeah, I love that.
there's nothing like being the user of the product that you're building. I went to a YC hackathon this past weekend, and then I had a lot of like students come up to me and say, "Hey, what do you think about this idea? What should I build?" And every time like someone would come to me, I would say, "Yeah, this idea is cool. I'm sure I have many ideas that I could tell you, but you have to be excited. You have to solve a problem that you have." And that seems basic. That seems like something you've heard like so many times before, but this plays out in a big way, especially years later, as you start distancing yourself to the user. And now like we have a team of 30 people. So it's a new challenge. Yeah, you got to look
How do
at.
you tackle? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, that was it.
Um, how do you tackle ease of use in onboarding? Because onboarding is something that you do only once, and most of your team has already onboarded. So they feel like what I found at least in the Slack API is that was the hardest part to improve because we didn't experience it every day. We experienced
Mhm.
sending bots and creating messages and stuff like that, but like none of us went through onboarding every day. So like making sure that onboarding is really slick was a challenge for us.
Huge challenge. And one pitfall that I see happening all the time, and it was a pitfall that I went into. Remember when I said like our onboarding had 5 steps? That onboarding was designed for time to production. And that's not what you should be doing for the onboarding. So what I mean, but in our specific use case, you would create an API key, you would create a domain, and then you would verify that domain using your DNS records. The moment we added domains and DNS records to the onboarding flow, forget about it. Like, some engineers don't have access to Cloudflare. They have to open a ticket with IT on Jira. Like, that becomes a mess, right? Or even if you do have access, like all this new generation of developers are coming to Resend now, they simply don't know. They don't know what a MX record is or TXT
Mm.
record is. They simply don't know. So what I've learned is that you should try to avoid that flow as much as possible. You should still think about that flow and optimize for that flow, but that's it lives elsewhere. What you need to do for the onboarding is the time to aha moment, and then you gotta understand what that is for your own business. Maybe for the Slack APIs, that first message that you send and you see it on Slack, you're like, wow, okay, I can send a message on Slack only to myself, not to a channel, not to a public or private, no, just to myself. Beautiful. You get the aha moment. Now you build on top of that. And for us, it was like the first email, which is not using your domain. It's scoped only to your email address that you sign up to, but it shows the power. It shows that you can do it. And now you feel more empowered and you're like, okay, I did this one. Now let me go to the next one. So I feel like cracking that code is really hard
I,
depending on what you're doing.
I love it. What we did at Slack was actually create a URL for a channel, and when you hit that
Mm-hmm.
URL with a specific parameter, it posted a message. So no authentication, no authorization, no nothing, just like post
Beautiful.
to my chat. And the funny thing is that when I left Slack, about 60% of messages were still with what we called webhooks, which was that URL
Mm-hmm.
that you could choose. Like, the simple path is not important just for onboarding. It's important for the rest of your customers' lifetime, because if they have an experience that they enjoy, they will tap on it again and again and again.
So true. I love that. I want to steal that idea now that you're talking about it.
Yeah, yeah, you should. There should be a URL. Do it. That'll be
Yeah.
awesome. A URL that just
Yeah.
sends message, like a REST
Yeah.
URL that you can just send a message. Um, Talking about, like, you mentioned different developers, and I think we're living in a world where we're moving from human developers to AI developers, or human developers using AI side copilot or side developer. How are you thinking about that when you're building an API?
Man, there's just something that happened now 2 years in a row every January. So I don't know what's about this month, but last January in 2024, January 2024, I remember sitting outside a store, just waiting the store to open. And then I was replying all the welcome emails that we send. So every time someone signs up for a resend, they get an email, and then I tell them, hey, you should reply, and I this is my prompt to them, and then they actually reply, and then I have to
Love
actually
that.
reply back. And I was just like, okay, let me just respond to these emails. I'm just waiting here. So I respond the first email, and then there's this person saying, oh, it came from Lovable. Like, okay. Then the next one, oh, it came from Bolt. It came from Lovable. I came from V0. I came from Lovable. I came from Bolt. Like 7 emails in a row. I remember that day because I knew, I was like, wow, there's a new definition of a developer. And this is a new type of people that are actually builders. They are creators. They're using software to either create a personal software for themselves or for others. And I don't care about their background. What I care is that this is something new. And I started to see patterns like this type of user, they didn't know how to troubleshoot. It's fascinating. They just come to you and they say, it
It
doesn't
doesn't
work.
work.
And you're like, okay, what do I do now? Like give me something, like give me the steps to reproduce, give me a screenshot, an error code. They don't know that concept. So it's fascinating to see. Um, and in my opinion, like the TAM of developers really expanded dramatically. And that was the realization I had last January. This January now, oh, sorry, I said January 2024, it's 2025. Now, this January 2026, it's the whole agents thing. And it's just fascinating because you are accustomed to add a reCAPTCHA to your sign up flow and add a bot detection on a CDN level to protect from bots. All this is over. Forget
Yeah,
about it.
it's need to be
Remove
a
your
reverse.
captcha, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You want the agents to come in.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's just fascinating because it's the user, it's an actual person who's taking that action, but it's someone on behalf of that person. So if you're blocking agents, you're blocking an actual human trying to do an actual thing. um, of course, there's a lot of considerations, especially when you think about businesses that are affected by abuse, like payments, like messaging. Like we have so many spammers trying to take advantage of Resend. Um, but you gotta think differently about your product. The API, like whatever you have on the dashboard, you need to have as a REST API. There's no debate anymore. Like you need full coverage. And there are areas that you might ignore, like, oh yeah, I'm sure team invitation is not that important. Maybe it is for agents, or I'm sure billing is not as important. Why don't you want agents to upgrade your plan? They should be able to
Be
do that. Why
amazing.
not? Right? They see like that you're close to hitting a quota. Why can't they ask the user to like, hey, I noticed that, can I upgrade? And then they are able to do that. I think traditionally we thought about billing endpoints as read only. Maybe they shouldn't be anymore. So there's a lot of considerations now that this box was open. And I think we're all trying to figure out what that really means.
So you think that in next year or so, agents will have, it will be common for agents to have a credit card and for the agents to go through onboarding, using, and then converting to paying customers, so to speak?
I think it's already happening. We have so many users coming from Cursor, coming from Claude, and Claude is recommending us. And I'm puzzled. Like I want more of that. I want to make sure we never lose that. And I was trying to reverse engineer, like, why are they recommending us? And I think it comes down to friction. Like we talked before, like they can do the first thing that it's easy to use. The API coverage is there. The LLMs.txt is there. Those are all signals that you want to be paying attention to because if you are the one that's recommended, I feel like there's just so much power in that, and we're seeing that play out with so many companies. So many of my friends are like seeing that effect as well.
Of
And
that.
in the end, it's
I,
not the agent that has the credit card. Like you already have an account, you already sign up, you already have a credit card on file. You need to empower the agent to just take action on what's already saved. So I think more on those lines.
so what does the future hold? Do you think that we will work on driving more AI, SEO or discovery, or that we'll have a fully autonomous agents that will put their own credit card? Where's the future of developer API and ecosystems?
I can see a world like in our industry where agents have multiple email inboxes and they're talking to each other, they're reading emails, they are the ones responding to emails as well. I can see agents having virtual credit cards that you generate on the fly with like very strict limits and so on that are automatically created on Ramp or Brex or whatever you're using. Um, and I feel like we should be talking more about agent experience. I think with DX, it was always a question of like, okay, uh, it's the combination of every little touch point that developers have with your product that you have to be optimizing, right? That's the same for agents. So how do you think about uh, how you remove the human in the loop, or they can actually take action? How do you remove the times that they are being blocked by some bot detection? And you got to think about every touch point, like analytics on the dashboard. amazing for users, completely inaccessible for agents. So you need to have like APIs that actually expose your analytics in a way that is consumable for them. We are adding so many touch points to like to the dashboard where you're like there's a log, for example, and then we have like, hey, copy this log to cursor so you can troubleshoot locally. We're doing that to the onboarding flow too. Like, hey, this is the code snippet, great. But what else? You know, you go to every quick start page on your docs, there should be a button like open cursor and a copy prompt button. So those things are they are the extension of DX, and they sometimes contradict each other too. I don't think they don't always go together. I think most time they go together. Like if you create an open API spec that is up to date, amazing. This is great for agents. But I don't know, keyboard shortcuts on your dashboard,
Mm,
the thing that makes developers love your product, agents don't care about that at all, right?
yeah, that's true.
So there are some things that were true for DX that are not necessarily that important for AX.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. For example, onboarding and putting in your credit card is the worst bane of developers. Developers hate it. And I think AI wouldn't mind putting their credit card initially because they have full control and they don't think about money in the same way we do. So
Yeah.
some of our best practice might change as time passes. Um, this has been amazing conversation. Thank you so much, Zeno, for um, I love your passion and like thoughtfulness and the fact that like even 2 minutes before our session you wanted to remove friction. That is great. And I think if developers and platform people do it all the time and always think about reducing friction, we will have a much more delightful developer experience. And remember that link. Um, thank you for
Yes,
having.
I will.
Thank you for coming.
No, thank you, man. Yeah, this was really nice. I'm glad we had a chance to talk.
Awesome.
Oh.